The markets are on the edge, Bitcoin is rallying, and the luxury watch world may never be the same again. Trump is back, and his return as president is already sending shockwaves through the financial world. But what does this mean for your watch collection? Will prices skyrocket like they did in 2019, or are we in for a new twist? Now, the world didn't burn and cease to exist. We also don't know whether he's going to make it worse. They certainly won't look at what now is a volatile investment in a Rolex Daytona. People won't be interested. Very small growth. Really, we're in the shit. Welcome back, I'm Vinny, former accountant turned watch dealer, and welcome to a new series that we are calling Vinny's Verdict, a more relaxed and laid back chat between me and the camera on things that are going on in the watch world and in the wider economic environment. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do that down below for these weekly videos. So to kick this off then, what is the initial impact that we've seen from the financial markets since Trump's victory? Well, the Dow Jones index has jumped by 3.6%, which is quite well. That reflects consumer optimism in Trump's pro-business policies, I would say. However, it's important to consider that whilst tax cuts and deregulation could boost corporate profits and lead to more money in the economy, there's a dual narrative at play here, because another fundamental pillar of his policies are the proposed tariffs on China and the rest of the world. This could trigger inflation in the United States, with prices increasing, and that of course has an impact on global economies as well. Usually there's a saying in economics that if America coughs, the rest of the world catches a cold. So any inflationary moves that we see in the United States economy usually eventually are reflected around the world. So where has investor confidence and volatility been over the last few weeks since Trump's win? It's important to say that markets generally remain quite resilient to elections and favour long-term stability over short-term political noise. So whilst from some perspectives a Trump win is a good thing and others it's a bad thing, regardless of whoever won, if Kamala Harris is now the president-elect of the United States, she also would have had volatile impacts on the market. But of course, there is this unpredictability factor of Donald Trump, and that's something that we experienced last time. Now, the world didn't burn and cease to exist when he won and was in power for 4 years. So there is some optimism, quite rightly, from some investors, given that his economy was in many ways in a better state than Biden's economy. Inflation wasn't as high, and obviously Trump assumes that medal for himself, that he is the guy that kept inflation low. We know that there are much bigger, wider global economic impacts, several wars going on everywhere that have impacted that inflationary figure, which isn't just an American thing from the Biden administration, it is an international thing. He will take that as his own achievement in his last administration, and so will the markets. The markets, in many ways, as I say, will look at that as a good thing, as a benefit of a Trump administration going forward, that hopefully inflation could be low. But as I say, keep an eye on those proposed tariffs, because we know China, he said that there's going to be a 60% tariff on Chinese imports. Now, you just look at anything in your living room, in your bedroom, over half of the things are made in China, have a made in China label on them. So that is absolutely going to have a massive impact on goods and services that are traded in the United States, because a lot of them will originate from China, because frankly, no one can compete with Chinese labor costs and therefore the cost of goods. So if the Americans are having to replace that with other goods from other countries, or even US-made goods, well, the first thing is that's going to take time for those goods to be replaced by American companies, but it's undoubtedly going to cost more because of the fact that American labor is considerably higher than Chinese labor. Now, before we get on to talking about the eventual impact on the luxury watch market and alternative investments in general, we have to look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was fundamentally one of the main key reasons why the watch market, what I call the hype bubble in 2021 and 2022, why it went nuts. during that period. Now, Bitcoin, as we know, all sorts of new market entrants were investing, not really even knowing what they were investing in, and people were making a lot of money. That led to a disposable income amongst people that we've not seen for a long time. Coupled with that, we also had, following COVID, huge handouts by not just here in the UK, but in the United States as well from the government, and people weren't going out on holidays and weren't using that disposable income. So that disposable income was just piling up in people's bank accounts. They were going out, they were buying luxury watches, they were investing in alternative assets and making even more money on stuff like Bitcoin. So this is why Bitcoin is important, because since Trump's win, Bitcoin has rallied once again and has reached a record level. Now, under the last Trump administration, Bitcoin also saw massive gains, with prices climbing alongside speculative investments in other assets, including luxury watches. Early indicators suggest a similar trend already. We know that Trump is a huge proponent of Bitcoin, and this, in theory, could lead to a new creation of wealth, and particularly a new creation of wealth amongst younger investors. It's typically younger people that understand cryptocurrency, understand Bitcoin, and those younger people are more likely to go and splash out in what really is a discretionary purchase now. I won't really call them investments anymore, because we've seen a backdrop of the last 2 years, Rolex prices, AP prices, Patek prices falling exponentially. Those are purchases that are discretionary purchases, but they're also flex purchases. So if those guys, those young crypto bros, make a load of money again, it is assumed that they, of course, will turn to the watch market once again and start piling their cash that they don't need, their disposable income, their earnings, into luxury watches. So that's a potential benefit of the surge in Bitcoin. And if that continues during the Trump administration, then I think it is possible we could see a bounce in the luxury watch market. So let's get back to discussing the importance of disposable income in all of this debate then. Now, for there to be new players in the market buying luxury watches, we need to see an increase in disposable income across the board. Now, the tax cuts that Trump has promised, the deregulation that Trump has promised, should inevitably mean that take-home pay for Americans is higher. It's simple maths, it's simple economics, but it means that they go back to the economy and they become spenders more than the savers that perhaps they've been over the last 2 years, with higher crippling inflation and limited disposable income. Now, there is also a huge potential risk of Trump's return to the White House on the luxury watch market and the wider sort of alternative investment area. The risk being the current international economic stability that we're in and we're experiencing, the uncertainty that we're seeing around the world, as I mentioned, with several wars going on in Ukraine and in the Middle East, the Israel conflict. That's all stuff that needs to be resolved. Now, whilst all of that is going on, there is inevitably a landscape that will sustain of caution. We need investors to be confident. The big problem with Trump's return is his unpredictability. We don't really know how he's going to solve the Ukraine crisis. We don't really know how he's going to address the Middle East conflict. All of that creates an unpredictable environment, a Ukraine crisis that's been going on for 1,000 days and that he has promised to resolve in 24 hours. We also don't know whether he's going to make it worse, whether he's going to escalate it even further. Now, I want to talk more specifically about the proposal of tariffs on imports. We've said before that there's, under Trump's proposals, going to be a 60% tariff on China and everything that they're importing from China, and the rest of the world, 10%. Now, we know that in the United Kingdom, really, we're in the shit in the UK, having left the European Union. We're turning to other countries like America, wanting to get a trade deal. Our UK economy has stagnated very small growth. We need new opportunities, and the last thing that we need in the United Kingdom is Trump to come along and say, oh, by the way, anything that you produce anymore, there's going to be a 10% tariff on that, which all that will mean is that the Americans will order less things from the United Kingdom. So we are hoping, we are praying that we'll be able to strike some kind of a trade deal with Trump and his administration, and we know he is some kind of an Anglophile to a degree. His mother was Scottish, and there might be potential of doing that. If it is the case where those tariffs are there and we can't strike up a deal, our economy will shrink even further. The Americans will have to pay more for their goods and services. And where does that really leave the luxury watch world and other alternative assets? Well, people won't be interested. You know, they'll fall even further into the background of people's thoughts, and certainly disposable income will go to other things. Even investors will shift to safer assets. They certainly won't look at what now is a volatile investment in a Rolex Daytona, for example, because there is this precedent there now that Rolex Daytonas, and Rolex the brand in particular, are no longer a safe haven asset. They once were. You know, you could walk into a pub and be wearing a Rolex, and the first thing that somebody would say to you is, oh, nice Rolex. That's a good investment, because we were brought up under this assumption, under this sort of handed down knowledge that Rolexes over a long period of time only rise in value, and therefore putting your money in a Rolex or in a luxury watch isn't a bad idea. Well, that environment, that backdrop has now fallen away. It is no longer there because there's a precedent there now of Rolex watches going in the other direction. So not only are we going to get caution from investors if tariffs happen, but also we'll get caution because there is now a precedent there of watches falling in value. And let's not forget, Trump has also recently released his own line of luxury watches. Now, I've not spoken about these before because they've been reviewed to death on YouTube. I do find them quite hilarious. There is nothing about them whatsoever that is luxury, not in terms of spec, not in terms of build quality. They're not handmade to any degree whatsoever. And so I think they're out of the discussion of whether people would invest their money into those watches. But what they do, and what I value them for being, is the same thing that I value the plastic moon swatch for, is the same thing that I value homage watches for, AliExpress watches for. They get people interested. They get new entrants interested in watches. That starts a journey for many future watch enthusiasts that eventually does lead to the disease of becoming a watch enthusiast and collector. I know for me, it started off all with just buying one watch from a Sicilian market when I was 10 years old, and that was a Rolex Submariner. It was automatic, it worked, it looked like a Rolex, and I absolutely loved it. And that's why I value stuff like this new Trump watch release, because it breaks beyond the barriers of the guys watching this video, which are the same 10,000 people every week. You know, you're watch enthusiasts, you're interested in watches. We need to get more people interested so that we can grow the size of the pie. If we grow the size of the pie, we sell more watches, the watch market booms, prices rise again. So I'm probably the only person that you'll find on YouTube saying that, yeah, I love Trump's new watch line because it's a great thing in general for the future of the watch industry. So to summarize, Trump's return could usher in both opportunities and threats, I would say, for the economy, the wider international economy, and at a micro level, our beloved luxury watch market. Things to look out for at the moment, of course, is that Bitcoin rally. Will it continue? Will it persist? Or is it just a bounce that will correct itself like many things that we've seen before? Other things to look out for are his handling of economic uncertainty and instability in the Middle East and in Ukraine. How does he solve those wars? If he solves them, then inevitably there will be a bounce in international economies and a feel-good factor. Let me know, guys, what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Thanks very much for joining me. Go check out VinnyFrancis.com, and I'll see you in the next Vinny's Verdict.